Before I tell you why we close the Narrows at sunset, I need you to understand something about water. Most people think drowning is the biggest danger in a river canyon. They're wrong. The real danger is what lives in the water after dark, in the places where the canyon walls block out the sky and the Virgin River runs cold and deep. Are you watching this late at night? Maybe you're planning a Zion trip and researching the Narrows hike. Drop a comment and let me know. Because if you've ever stood at the entrance to that slot canyon, looking at the water disappearing between those towering sandstone walls, you need to hear this story. What I'm about to tell you might change your vacation plans. My name is Dylan Carter, and I've been a park ranger at Zion National Park for 5 years. I'm certified in search and rescue, swift water rescue, and technical rope operations. In 5 years, I've pulled 7 people out of flash flood situations. I've evacuated hundreds of hikers ahead of storms. I've coordinated 4 body recoveries after people ignored warnings and paid with their lives. And 8 weeks ago, I lost an entire family to something that the official report calls a flash flood tragedy. But I know that's not what happened, because I found the daughter, the only survivor, and what she told me before she stopped speaking altogether doesn't match any flood scenario I've ever encountered. Let me start at the beginning, 8 weeks ago, on what should have been a routine day. It was mid-September, perfect weather. The summer crowds had thinned out, but the water levels in the Virgin River were still safe for hiking. The Narrows is one of the most popular hikes in Zion, a 16-mile journey through a slot canyon where you spend most of the time walking in the river itself. The walls rise up to 1,000 feet on either side, so narrow in places you can touch both sides at once. We have strict rules about the Narrows. You need a permit for overnight camping. You need to check weather forecasts for flash flood risk. And most importantly, you need to be out before sunset. That's not just a suggestion. That's a hard rule that's been in place since the park opened in 1919. On September 23rd, the Morrison family checked in at the visitor center for a day hike of the Narrows. Robert Morrison, age 42. His wife Jessica, age 40. Their daughter Lily, age 10. Experienced hikers from Colorado. They had proper gear, water shoes, walking sticks, dry bags. They started the hike at 9 a.m., planning to go 6 miles in and turn around, giving themselves plenty of time to exit before the 4 p.m. cutoff. At 3 p.m., my partner Maya Rodriguez and I started our sweep. Every afternoon, we hike into the Narrows from the bottom-up route to make sure all hikers are heading out. It's usually routine. We encounter a few stragglers, remind them of the time, and everyone complies. But that day, as we hiked deeper into the canyon, we noticed something wrong. The water felt different, colder than it should be, and the sound was off. The Virgin River has a constant murmur as it flows over rocks, but this was different. Underneath the normal water sounds, there was something else, a low-frequency hum that you felt more than heard. "You feel that?" Maya asked, stopping in the waist-deep water. "Yeah, water's cold, really cold. Too cold. We're in a drought. The water should be warmer than this." She looked up at the canyon walls, checking the sky. "Weather's clear. No rain forecast. So why does the river feel like snowmelt?" We continued hiking, checking with hikers as we passed them. Everyone was heading out on schedule. But as we got deeper into the canyon, around the 5-mile mark where the walls get really narrow, we found them. The Morrison family. All 3 of them standing in the middle of the river, water up to their waists, not moving, just staring upstream at something we couldn't see. "Folks," I called out, "park rangers, you need to start heading back. We're approaching sunset cutoff." They didn't respond, didn't even acknowledge we'd spoken. Maya and I exchanged glances. This wasn't normal behavior. We approached carefully, mindful of the current, calling out again. "Morrison family? Can you hear me?" Robert Morrison finally turned to look at us. His eyes were unfocused, distant. Do you hear it? Hear what, sir? The singing. It's beautiful. It's calling us upstream. We need to go see what's making that sound. I didn't hear any singing, just the water and that low-frequency hum. Sir, there's no singing. What you're hearing might be the acoustics of the canyon. Sound bounces strangely in here, but we need to get you and your family back to the trailhead, now. Jessica Morrison spoke without taking her eyes off whatever she was seeing upstream. It's not acoustics. It's real. The children are singing, the water children. They want us to come play with them. That's when I noticed Lily, the 10-year-old daughter. She wasn't staring upstream like her parents. She was looking at the canyon walls, her eyes wide with terror, her mouth moving like she was trying to scream but couldn't make sound. Maya, something's really wrong here. Radio for backup. Maya pulled out her radio, but before she could key it, the temperature dropped. I mean plummeted. Like someone had opened a freezer door. Our breath came out in visible clouds. The water, already cold, turned ice cold. And then I heard it. What the Morrisons had been hearing. Singing. High-pitched, childlike voices echoing off the canyon walls. Singing in a language I didn't recognize. And underneath the singing, that hum got louder, deeper, until I could feel it vibrating in my chest. "We need to get out of here," I said, grabbing Robert Morrison's arm. "All of you, move, now." But he pulled away, a smile spreading across his face. "Can't you see them? The children in the water. They're so beautiful, so happy. They want us to join them." I looked at the water. I didn't see any children. Just the brown-green flow of the Virgin River, moving faster now. The current picking up. "There's nothing there, sir. You're experiencing some kind of... I don't know what. But we need to evacuate immediately." That's when Lily grabbed my hand. Her grip was desperate, painful. When I looked down at her, she was crying silently, shaking her head violently. "Don't let them take Mommy and Daddy," she whispered. "Please, the water people. They take everyone who hears the singing." Before I could respond, before I could process what she'd said, the parents moved. Both of them at once, like puppets on the same string. They walked upstream, against the current, moving with purpose toward a section of the canyon where the walls narrowed even further. "Stop!" Maya shouted. "Do not go any further! That section is dangerous." But they didn't stop. They didn't even slow down. They just kept walking into the narrowing canyon, the water getting deeper, the walls closing in. Maya started after them. I grabbed Lily and followed, but the little girl was fighting me, trying to go back, screaming now. "No!" "No. If we go in there, we die. The water people live in the deep parts. They drown you and keep you." I had to make a choice. Chase the parents or protect the child. Maya was already 20 yards ahead, moving fast. I decided to trust her to handle the adults. I picked up Lily and started back toward the exit, moving as quickly as I could through the thigh-deep water. That's when the flash flood alarm sounded, a series of short blasts echoing through the canyon. But the sky was clear. There were no storms anywhere in the drainage basin. The alarm shouldn't have been going off. I looked back. Maya was standing still in the water, looking upstream. The Morrisons had disappeared around a bend, and the water level was rising. Fast. Too fast for any normal flood. "Maya! Get back here, now!" She started moving back toward me, but the water was fighting her, the current suddenly strong, pulling her upstream instead of down, like the river was flowing the wrong direction. "Dylan, I can't. Something's pulling me." I set Lily down on a small rocky ledge, told her to stay put, and started back toward Maya. But before I could reach her, a wall of water came around the bend. not brown with sediment like a flash flood. This water was clear, crystal clear, and it was moving upstream. The wave hit Maya and she went under. I dove in after her, the cold water shocking my system. I couldn't see anything. The water was too turbulent. I reached out blindly, searching for her. My hand touched something, but it wasn't Maya. It was small, child-sized, and it was pulling me deeper. I opened my eyes despite the stinging cold and saw it. A face, pale, bloated, with eyes that were too large and teeth that were too sharp. Not a child. Not human. Something that looked like a child but wrong. And there were others behind it. Dozens of them. Reaching for me with webbed hands. I kicked hard, broke free, surfaced gasping. The water had calmed. The upstream surge was gone. And so was Maya. So were the Morrisons. The canyon was quiet except for the normal sound of the river. And on the ledge where I'd left her, Lily was curling into a ball, rocking back and forth, whispering the same words over and over. The water people took them. The water people always take them. That's why we close at sunset. That's why we close at sunset. I radioed for emergency response. Carried Lily out of the canyon myself. By the time we reached the trailhead, full darkness had fallen. Search and rescue deployed immediately. They searched for 3 days. They found Maya's radio and gear scattered along the riverbed about a quarter-mile upstream from where she'd disappeared. They found Robert Morrison's hat, Jessica Morrison's water bottle, but no bodies, no signs of where they'd gone. The official explanation was flash flood. Despite no rain, despite clear weather, despite every logical reason that couldn't be right. They said an upstream cloudburst had sent a surge through the canyon, that the bodies had been washed away, possibly trapped under rocks or in deep pools, that recovery might not be possible. But I knew better. I'd seen those things in the water, those child-shaped things that weren't children. And I'd heard Lily's words. The water people. After the incident, they put me on administrative leave. Standard procedure after a traumatic event. Gave me access to counseling. Asked me to write detailed reports. I wrote what I'd seen. They told me trauma can cause hallucinations, that cold water shock can cause confusion, that I was remembering things wrong. But Lily remembered the same things. When child psychologists interviewed her, she told them about the water children, about the singing, about how her parents had been lured deeper into the canyon by something that looked like children playing in the water. The psychologists diagnosed her with PTSD, said she'd created a fantasy explanation to cope with the trauma of losing her parents. They recommended long-term therapy and possibly medication. But one person believed us. Daniel Whitehorse. He was a member of the local Paiute tribe, a man in his mid-60s who occasionally worked as a cultural consultant for the Park Service. He'd been guiding people through these canyons since before Zion became a national park. He came to visit me at my apartment during my leave. The Pugweavie, he said without preamble. That's what my people call them. Water children. They've lived in the deep pools and narrow canyons of this land for thousands of years, long before white settlers came, long before the park was established. You believe me. I've seen them too. When I was young, my grandfather took me into the sacred canyons and showed me where they live, told me the rules for staying safe. Don't swim in deep pools after sunset, don't follow sounds of children playing in the water, and never enter the narrows after dark. What are they? Spirits, demons, something in between. My grandfather said they were children who drowned in the canyons long ago and couldn't find peace. The water changed them, made them hungry, made them want company. So they call to people, lure them into the deep water, and take them. How do we stop them? You don't. You respect them. You follow the rules. The Park Service has the right idea closing the Narrows at sunset. That's when the Pagwivi are strongest. That's when they hunt. But the Morrisons disappeared in daylight. Before sunset. Daniel nodded slowly. That's new. Or rather, that's old becoming new again. My grandfather said there was a time, before the dam upstream, when the Pagwivi could hunt any time. But when they built the dam and controlled the water flow, something changed. The Pagwivi became weaker, confined to certain places, limited to certain times. But lately, he trailed off. Lately what? Lately the water's been different. Lower flows because of the drought, warmer temperatures. The river's changing. And when the river changes, the Pagwivi adapt. They're getting stronger, able to act during daylight, able to reach further from their deep pools. So what do we do? Close the whole canyon? The Park Service won't do that. Too much money in tourism, too many people who want to experience the Narrows. All we can do is warn people, enforce the rules, and hope they listen. After 4 weeks of leave, I came back to work. Chief Ranger Patricia Holbrook called me into her office my first day back. "Dylan, I need to know if you're okay to return to duty. If you need more time, we can arrange that." "I'm fine. I want to work." She studied me for a long moment. "The official report lists Maya Rodriguez as missing, presumed dead due to flash flood. The Morrison parents are listed the same way. Do you have any reason to believe that report is inaccurate?" I thought about Daniel Whitehorse's words, about the Pagwivi, about things that lived in the water and hunted people. I thought about my career, my reputation, my credibility. "No, ma'am, the official report is accurate." She nodded. "Good. Because we have a problem. Hikers are still reporting unusual experiences in the Narrows. Hearing singing, seeing children in the water, feeling compelled to stay after sunset. We need rangers out there who understand what's really happening. Rangers who will enforce the closure rules absolutely." "You believe me about what I saw?" "I've been working in Zion for 18 years, Dylan. I've seen things I can't explain. Lost 6 rangers in that canyon over the years. Every single one of them reported similar experiences before they disappeared. Singing, children in the water, compulsion to stay after dark." She pulled out a file. "This park has rules for a reason, and the Narrows closure at sunset is the most important one. I need you to help me enforce it. So that's what I've been doing. Every day, Maya's replacement Sarah and I sweep the Narrows before sunset. We warn hikers. We enforce the deadline. We watch the water for signs of the Pagwivi. And every day, I see Maya's face in the water. The Morrisons' faces. Others I don't recognize. Pale. Bloated. Wrong. Watching from the deep pools. Waiting for someone to break the rules. Waiting for someone to stay too long. 2 weeks ago, we had an incident that proves the Pagwivi are getting bolder. 2 weeks ago, we had an incident that proves the Pagwivi are getting bolder, and it happened in broad daylight at 2 p.m. with dozens of witnesses. It was a Saturday, peak visitor day. The Narrows was crowded with hikers, families, photographers. Sarah and I were doing our regular patrol, checking permits, reminding people about the sunset closure, making sure everyone was staying safe. Around 2 p.m., we reached the section called Wall Street, where the canyon narrows to about 20 feet wide and the walls soar over 1,000 feet straight up. The water there runs deep, chest high in some places, and the current is stronger. That's when we heard screaming. Not the playful screaming of kids having fun. Real terror. We pushed through the crowd of hikers and found a young couple, maybe mid-20s, standing frozen in the water. The man was pointing at something upstream. The woman was sobbing uncontrollably. "What's wrong?" I demanded, reaching them. "What happened?" "The children," the man gasped. "There are children in the water." "They're drowning. We need to help them." I looked where he was pointing. and I saw them. 3 small figures in the water, about 50 yards upstream. They looked like children, maybe 8 or 9 years old, bobbing in the current like they were struggling to stay afloat. Every instinct screamed at me to swim to them, to pull them to safety. But I'd seen this before. I knew what they really were. "Those aren't children," I said, grabbing the man's arm as he started to move upstream. "Don't go near them." "Are you insane?" "They're drowning. We have to help." Other hikers were noticing now. People were starting to move toward the figures in the water. The Pagwivi were calling to multiple people at once, something I'd never seen them do before. "Sarah, get on the radio. Emergency evacuation, now." She keyed her radio immediately. "All units, this is Rodriguez at Wall Street, initiating emergency evacuation of the Narrows. Repeat, emergency evacuation. All hikers need to exit immediately." "What about the children?" someone shouted. "We can't just leave them." I pulled out my own radio and switched to the emergency broadcast frequency that played over speakers at the trailhead. "Attention all hikers in the Narrows. This is Park Ranger Dylan Carter. There is an emergency situation. All hikers must exit the canyon immediately. Do not approach any figures you see in the water. I repeat, do not approach anything in the water. Exit now." "You're crazy," the young man said, pushing past me. "I'm not leaving kids to drown." He started upstream. 2 other hikers followed him, and the figures in the water stopped bobbing. They went still, watching, waiting. "Stop!" I shouted, going after them. "Those aren't children." "There's something else." But they didn't listen. The young man reached the first figure and grabbed it, tried to pull it to safety. The moment he touched it, the figure's head turned, and I saw what I'd seen 8 weeks ago. Pale skin, 2 large eyes, teeth that were too sharp. The man screamed. The water around him started churning. More figures rose from beneath the surface, dozens of them, all converging on the 3 hikers who'd tried to help. "Sarah, help me!" I dove into the deep water, swimming hard toward them. Sarah was right behind me. We reached the first hiker, a middle-aged woman, and pulled her back. She was fighting us, still trying to reach the children. The young man and his girlfriend weren't so lucky. They were surrounded now, the Pagwivi grabbing at them, pulling them under. Every time they surfaced, they went right back down. I couldn't reach them. The water was too turbulent. The current was too strong. And the Pagwivi were forming a barrier between us and them, a wall of pale faces and reaching hands. "Dylan, we have to go," Sarah yelled. "We can't save them." She was right. If we stayed, we'd end up pulled under too. I grabbed the woman we'd saved and started back toward the other hikers. Sarah shepherded people downstream, getting everyone moving toward the exit. Behind us, the screaming stopped. The water calmed. And when I looked back, the young man and his girlfriend were gone. So were the Pagwivi, just the normal flow of the Virgin River, like nothing had happened. We evacuated over 300 people from the Narrows that day. It took 4 hours. Search and rescue deployed immediately, searching for the missing couple. They found the man's body 2 days later, caught in rocks about a half-mile downstream. Cause of death, drowning. But his body showed signs that didn't match a normal drowning. Scratches that looked like small handprints, bruising around his ankles like something had been pulling him down. The girlfriend's body was never found. The incident made national news. Mysterious deaths in Zion's Narrows. Is the Narrows too dangerous? Calls for closing the hike permanently. Investigations into Park Service safety protocols. Patricia held a press conference, explained that the Narrows is inherently dangerous, that the victims had ignored ranger warnings, that the park has strict safety rules for a reason. She didn't mention the Pagwivi, didn't mention the water children, just stuck to standard explanations about strong currents and cold water and tragic accidents. But internally, the Park Service was panicking, because the Pagwivi were hunting in daylight now, with witnesses, in a crowded section of canyon. The rules weren't working anymore. Daniel Whitehorse came to another emergency meeting. This time, Patricia invited him officially, along with the regional park service director and the head of visitor safety. "The dam," Daniel said simply. "You need to increase the water flow from the dam upstream. The Pogweavy are getting stronger because the drought has weakened the river. They need deep, cold, fast-moving water to stay in their pools. When the water gets low and warm, they can leave. They can hunt in shallow areas. They can act during daylight." "We can't control dam operations," the director said. "That's Bureau of Reclamation. Different agency, different priorities. Then people will keep dying. The Pogweavy won't stop. They've tasted fresh kills now. They're hungry. And every person who drowns in these canyons joins them, becomes one of them. That's how they reproduce. That's how they grow stronger." "You're telling me that every drowning victim in Zion becomes one of these water children?" Patricia asked. "Not every drowning. Only the ones who die in the sacred pools, the deep places where the Pogweavy live. That's why we need to increase water flow, flush them back into the deep canyons where they belong, make the shallow areas inhospitable for them." The director was skeptical. But Patricia backed Daniel's recommendation. After 2 more deaths in the following week, both in the Narrows, both with witnesses reporting seeing children in the water, the Bureau of Reclamation agreed to a controlled release from the dam. They opened the gates, increased the flow rate by 40%. The Virgin River surged, turning from a wading creek into a proper river. The water level rose, the current strengthened, the temperature dropped, and the Pogweavy retreated, back into the deep pools, back into the narrow sections where the water runs fast and cold, back to where they belonged. The deaths stopped, the sightings decreased. The Narrows was still dangerous, still closed at sunset, but it was safer than it had been in months. But the solution was temporary. The increased water flow couldn't be sustained indefinitely. The drought was getting worse. Downstream water users needed their allocation. Eventually, the flow would have to be reduced again. "We bought ourselves time," Patricia told me privately. "Maybe 6 months, maybe a year, but eventually the water will drop again. And when it does, the Pogweavy will come back, stronger than before. So what do? We enforce the rules. We watch the water. We warn people. And we pray that's enough. It's been 6 weeks since the water flow was increased. 6 weeks of relative calm. But I still see things, still hear things, still feel the Pogweavy watching from the deep pools, waiting for their chance." Last week, I took a group of new rangers into the Narrows for training, showed them the dangerous sections, taught them the warning signs of flash floods, explained the sunset closure rule. We reached Wall Street around 4 p.m. Perfect timing to turn back. As we started the return journey, one of the new rangers, a young guy named Connor, stopped suddenly. "Did you hear that?" "Hear what?" I asked, though I already knew. "Singing. Children singing. It sounds like it's coming from upstream." I grabbed his arm. "Connor, listen to me very carefully. That's not children. That's not anything you want to investigate. We're leaving now, all of us. Keep moving. But what if there are kids who got separated from their parents? What if they need help? They don't need help. They're not real. Move. Now." He resisted for a moment, looking upstream with that same unfocused expression I'd seen on the Morrisons' faces. But then he blinked, shook his head, and followed us out. That night, I called Connor into my office. "What you heard today, what you felt compelled to investigate, that's what kills people in the Narrows. It's not flash floods. It's not cold water. It's not even the physical dangers of the canyon. It's that compulsion, that voice in your head telling you to stay longer, to go deeper, to see what's making that beautiful sound. What is it, really? I mean, I read the official reports. Flash floods, drowning, hypothermia. But that's not what you're describing. I made a decision. This kid deserved to know what he was really dealing with. The Paiute people call them Pugwivi, water children, spirits of people who drowned in these canyons. They live in the deep pools and narrow passages. They call to the living, lure them into the water, and they take them. Connor was quiet for a long moment. You're serious? I've seen them. I've lost my partner to them. I've watched families disappear because they heard the singing and couldn't resist. So yes, I'm serious. And if you're going to work in this park, if you're going to patrol the Narrows, you need to understand what you're really dealing with. Does everyone know? All the rangers? The ones who've been here long enough. The ones who've seen things they can't explain. The others think it's superstition or trauma-induced hallucinations. They'll learn eventually. Or they won't last long enough to matter. What do I do if I hear the singing again? You do what I did today. You leave. Immediately. You don't investigate. You don't try to help. You don't look back. You just get yourself and anyone with you out of the canyon as fast as possible. Because once the Pugwivi fix on you, once they mark you as a potential victim, they won't stop calling until you either answer or you leave Zion entirely. And if I answer, then you end up like Maya Rodriguez, like the Morrisons, like the young couple 2 weeks ago. You drown in water that shouldn't be able to drown you. You disappear into pools that shouldn't be deep enough to hide a body, and eventually you become one of them. Another Pugwivi calling to the next victim. Connor left my office looking shaken but educated. Whether he'd take the warnings seriously or dismiss them as crazy talk, I didn't know, but I'd done my duty. I'd told him the truth. Yesterday, I visited Lily Morrison. She's living with her aunt in Salt Lake City now, going to therapy 3 times a week. She still doesn't talk much. But when I walked in, she looked at me and spoke for the first time since that day in the canyon. Did you save them? My mommy and daddy? Did you bring them back from the water people? I knelt down to her level. No, Lily. I'm sorry. I couldn't save them. Are they still in the water? Are they Pugwivi now? Daniel had explained that to me. How drowning victims in the sacred pools became Pugwivi themselves, how they transformed into the very things that killed them. I didn't want to tell Lily that. Didn't want her to know her parents were now the monsters that drowned people. But she deserved the truth. Yes, I think they are. She nodded slowly, like she'd already known. That's why I see them in my dreams. They're calling me, telling me to come back to the canyon, telling me to come swim with them. But I won't go. I know the rules now. That's good, Lily. That's very good. Don't ever go back there. Don't ever answer the singing. Will you promise me something? What? Don't let other families go in the water when the Pugwivi are hunting. Keep everyone safe. Make them follow the rules. I promise. That's my job now. She hugged me then, and I felt the weight of that promise. The weight of all the people I'd failed to save. Maya, the Morrisons, the young couple, all the others over the years who'd heard the singing and couldn't resist. But I also felt the determination to keep that promise, to enforce the rules, to close the Narrows at sunset every single day, to warn people about the water children even if they thought I was crazy. Because the Pugwivi are real. They're patient. They're hungry. And they're getting stronger as the drought continues, as the water levels drop, as climate change alters the rivers and canyons that have been their home for thousands of years. If you're planning to visit Zion National Park, if you're thinking about hiking the Narrows, please listen to what I'm about to tell you. Follow the rules, all of them. Get your permit. Check the weather forecast. Wear proper footwear. Bring enough water and food. But most importantly, be out before sunset. That's not just a suggestion. That's not just a Park Service rule to make their lives easier. It's a survival instruction learned through decades of deaths. Don't investigate singing you hear in the canyon. Don't approach children you see playing in the water. Don't swim in the deep pools. Don't linger in the narrow sections where the walls block out the sky. And if you feel compelled to stay longer, to go deeper, to see what's making that beautiful sound, fight it with everything you have. Because that compulsion is the Pagwivi calling you. And if you answer, you won't come back. The Narrows is one of the most beautiful hikes in America. The towering sandstone walls, the Virgin River flowing through that impossible slot canyon, the way light filters down from above, painting everything in shades of orange and red. But it's also a hunting ground for something ancient and hungry, something that was here long before the park, long before white settlers, long before the Paiute people who learned to respect it and avoid it and pass down warnings through generations. The Pagwivi don't hate humans. They're not evil in the traditional sense. They're just predators following their nature. They need to feed. They need company. They need to reproduce by claiming new victims who become new Pagwivi. And the modern world, with its dams and droughts and climate change, is making it easier for them to hunt. Making it easier for them to leave their deep pools and venture into shallow areas where people feel safe. We close the Narrows at sunset for a reason, because that's when the Pagwivi are strongest. That's when the canyon belongs to them. But honestly, after everything I've seen, after Maya and the Morrisons and all the others, I'm not sure there's any safe time to be in that water anymore. The rules are changing, the Pagwivi are adapting, and we're running out of ways to protect people from something we can barely acknowledge exists. So please, if you visit Zion, if you hike the Narrows, respect the water, respect the canyon, and respect the sunset closure. Because I've seen what happens to people who don't, and I wouldn't wish that fate on anyone. The water children are always listening, always watching, always calling. Don't answer.